Las Vegas sort of embodies every single thing that I hate about capitalism and its unsustainability, and the way that we're perfectly happy to exploit vulnerable environments in order to pursue fleeting pleasure. But I understand it's an important tourist destination. I understand a lot of people like it. I've been there several times for RollerCon, where we stayed at the Westgate, rest in peace, and all I did was ref roller derby for a gajillion hours a day and hang out with my friends at the pool after dark. But if I hadn't been to RollerCon, I never would have gone to Las Vegas. But I understand that it is a hot tourist destination, not only for Americans, but also for foreign tourists. So I was surprised, or not surprised, to see this video.
I ain't never seen Vegas look like this on a Saturday at 1 in the morning. Where's the people? Holy shit, dude. What the fuck? Like, I can't make this shit up. Holy shit, bro. This is a Saturday at 1 in the... Where are the fucking people? Look, even on the Venetian bridge over there. Nobody.
I made a video earlier about how bad Trump's policies were for the tourism industry, how Florida was getting absolutely fucked by the fact that European and Canadian tourists are not going there on vacation anymore. Expect that's going to get even worse now that Alligator Auschwitz has opened, and there is international outrage against a concentration camp being run in the Florida Everglades. But back at the end of May, there was a report that came out from Tourism Economics, which is under Oxford Economics, that said that international travel to the U.S. for vacation for tourism was expected to fall 9% this year. And back in April, NBC News was reporting a 12.5% drop in people crossing from Canada into the U.S. That, like, Canadian tourists, they are not interested in supporting a country whose president threatened to try and annex them as the 51st state. Like, why would you want to go vacation in a country where the president had threatened your homeland with invasion? Not to mention all of the tariffs that Trump keeps slapping on and pulling off and slapping on Canada, which create economic turmoil, instability for them. I get Canadians in my comments all the time who are like, we're so sorry, but we're not coming to your country to spend money anymore. And I'm like, bro, please don't apologize. Please stay out of the United States. It's not safe for foreign tourists here. There have been at least 2 instances of Canadians who have been snatched up by ICE and put in detention facilities for sometimes weeks on end. Those were Canadians who were here on vacation. There have been multiple German tourists who were here on vacation who've been snatched up. And last week, The Guardian broke a story about how an Irish tourist overstayed his visa by 3 days, and ICE has abducted him and stuffed him into a detention facility. According to The Guardian, for roughly 100 days, a man named Thomas has faced harsh detention conditions despite agreeing to a deportation. He's like, yeah, please send me home to Ireland. Thomas, who is a 35-year-old tech worker and father of 3 from Ireland, came to West Virginia to visit his girlfriend. It was one of many trips he had taken to the United States, and he was authorized to travel under a visa waiver program that allows tourists to stay in the country for 90 days. He had planned to fly home to Ireland in December, but had to delay that flight due to a health issue, and that is backed up by his medical records. He was too sick to fly home, and so he had to delay his flight by 3 days. So ICE came and snatched him up and stuffed him in a detention facility. The Guardian describes a nightmarish ordeal that Thomas has been through. He was sent to 3 different ICE facilities and spent 100 days behind bars with little understanding of why he was being held or when he would ever get out. Nobody is safe from the system if they get pulled into it, Thomas said in a recent interview back home in Ireland. He's being referred to by a nickname out of fear of further consequences for him and his girlfriend, who is an American. He eventually, again, after 100 days in an ICE detention facility, and we know from court documents that ICE centers have horrific records of human rights violations, lack of access to medical care, insufficient nutrition, food that is moldy, cockroaches. I mean, I could go on about ICE detention centers. He was eventually sent back to Ireland, and he has been banned from entering the U.S. for a decade. The Guardian says that tourists and visitors with valid visas are being detained by ICE, including tourists from Australia, Germany, Canada, and the UK. In April, an Irish woman who is a U.S. green card holder was detained by ICE for 17 days. Thomas said he knew he was overstaying his visa by 3 days. He thought he did everything appropriate. He notified the immigration officials online to let them know he was sick and couldn't fly home. So long story short, he becomes unwell when they're visiting family in Savannah, Georgia. He ends up getting picked up by the police, transferred to ICE, and he thought he was going to get deported back to Ireland. But instead, they put him in a for-profit detention facility run by Geo Group, the same folks who run detention facilities all over the United States, concentration camps all over the United States, and also in South Africa. And they kept him for 100 days. Please understand that Core Civic and Geo Group, these for-profit businesses, they are publicly traded, by the way. I don't know whether there's any ability to leverage them through the stock market. I haven't really investigated that. Maybe somebody else, could, who's not me, because they get almost all of their money from our tax dollars. They are government contractors. The longer they keep people in detention, the more they can bill the federal government. It's a grift. It's a goddamn fucking grift. These guys are doing a capitalism while depriving people of their liberty. So there's no legitimate reason to have kept Thomas for over 100 days. The reason was he became a cash cow. Thomas describes pretty horrific conditions, only being allowed outside for 1 hour a day, several instances of being shackled at the wrist, waist, and legs, transported to various facilities. Sometimes he was kept in a holding cell with 50 other detainees. There was an instance of a fight breaking out, and so everybody was put in isolation where he was not allowed to contact his attorney or his family members, even though he wasn't the one fighting. It was, that let's just do collective punishment. His lawyer repeatedly asked for him to be released and sent home to Ireland. ICE said no, with no justification for why they were keeping him and no estimated date of when they would release him. There's no transparency. ICE really doesn't want you to know what is going on inside these facilities. They don't want lawyers to have access to people. They really want to deprive everyone there of their due process. They want to have it be completely opaque so they can commit whatever human rights violations they want. They can do whatever they want, and you cannot check them. They want to operate outside of the law and charge the American taxpayer for it. Also of note, Thomas said he and several other inmates requested medical visits but were never once seen by a physician. I heard people crying for doctors, saying they couldn't breathe, and staff would say, "Well, I'm not a doctor," and then walk away. He said he did eventually receive the psychiatric medication he needed to be on, but they would just throw his pill under the cell door, and then he'd have to scramble to find it on the floor. Thomas also said at one point he and a group of abductees were transferred from an ICE facility to a Bureau of Prisons facility. He said he watched a Bureau of Prisons guard tear up hearing how ICE was treating them. Additionally, Thomas was not allowed to speak to his children during this time. Could you imagine if you went somewhere on vacation, you became ill, you couldn't travel home, they abducted you, stuffed you into a concentration camp. They go on in this report to talk about the overcrowding in the facilities. And then you weren't allowed to talk to your children for 100 days. He talked about how disorganized the system was. They would frequently transfer folks and then transfer them back. It seemed chaotic. The folks at ICE didn't know what they were doing. It was highly disorganized, and he said he was really worried at the time he was going to be transferred to Gitmo or to El Salvador because it was so disorganized. And as I've said before, the incompetence is part of the plan. It's malfeasance, sure, but it's also weaponized incompetence meant to enact maximum harm. So I guess getting back to the beginning of my video here, you wonder why tourist destinations in America are fucking empty. Americans can't afford to go on vacation, and tourists from other countries are not safe to come here. Please, if you're from another country, don't come here on vacation. Please don't. It's too risky. I met a gentleman over the weekend who was visiting from Mexico. In my head, I was like, "Sir, you are so brave," but also like, please be careful. It doesn't matter if you're here legally. It doesn't matter if you're a fucking tourist. It doesn't matter if you are an asylum seeker. It doesn't matter if you have a green card. It doesn't matter if you have a visa. They don't care. They're going to snatch you. Because the more people they can snatch, the more they can charge the federal government, the more of our taxpayer dollars they can use to enrich themselves. Don't come here on vacation.